Thank you all for joining us tonight, and I'm excited that you've come for Dial In Devotion. Um, I would like to introduce our speaker tonight, Ashley Davis, and Ashley is speaking to us about she's speaking to us about priorities, and I know that Ashley lives what she speaks, and I'm excited about her talking to us tonight. So, Ashley, go ahead and begin sharing your heart with us, please.
Like Sister Heather said, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'll let you know that what I'm kind of guiding my topic is on my screen. So if you see me not looking at you directly in the camera, you'll know that's where I'm looking. So I'm supposed to be talking about priorities, and I came over to my mom's house for a few minutes this morning to see my grandma, and I told her, just as soon as you're supposed to talk about something, you get a little test on if you really can uh, do what you're about to preach, basically, and if you can really walk and talk the talk on what you're going to share. This morning, I have my alarm set for 5:30, I think, with my intentions of getting up and doing a 5K and doing my prayer time, hopefully all before Jack wakes up at about 7 or so. And I was on track to do that. And then my alarm went off, and I put my alarm back to sleep and myself back to sleep and just slept a whole other hour. So I got my day all in a funky order, but ultimately still kept my priorities as they should be, but it didn't quite go in the right order as I normally would prefer. So some days that will happen. This is still real life that we're dealing with here. So from the outset of the devotion, I just want to tell you that this area of my life has experienced a lot of change since I've had a baby. And I'll give you a better picture of what that looks like as we continue. But before having a baby, for the most part, I seemed to have like limitless time and opportunity to do whatever I wanted to do. And of course, having another person that you're responsible for really changes that. So some of the information I'm going to share with you tonight will just solely be my own experience, and some of it will be from the Bible and some other sources. So I want to encourage you to keep an open mind as I get started, and just don't assume that you have your priorities right, and don't assume that you have them wrong from the outset of the devotion. Just kind of be available for what maybe we might learn tonight. Another kind of prerequisite, a setup to the talk here is, if you're not a type A, list-loving, agenda-making person like I am, I'm just please asking you not to use that as an excuse, not to use that as an excuse to avoid making and keeping your priorities. I know we're all different, and I'm thankful for that. But if you don't have a personality type that is similar to mine, don't feel like you can't apply some of the things that I'm going to share tonight. I'll get into some less like black and white ways to keep your priorities, and some more creative ways to kind of implement your priorities a little bit later. And one more thing, I also don't want to come across as your mom popping your hand and telling you, you need to get yourself together, because, I am only 27, and I'm not trying to take that role. But this is a really practical topic, and I do think it should be addressed that way. Because when it really comes down to it, setting and keeping our priorities in an appropriate manner is really just a matter of idolatry. And Exodus 20:30, the Lord plainly says, "You shall have no other gods before me." And often I think we choose to let things in our life, and most often unintentionally, the things become idols. I don't think we let something into our life and say, "I'm going to let this become an idol today." I mean, I don't think that we really go into it like that, but it happens. And for those of us that live busy lives, even our to-do lists and the busyness of life and the rushing and the got to get things done, that mode that we tend to get into becomes an idol for us even. And it's not even one that we like. A lot of the things that we unintentionally make idols aren't even things that we like sometimes. So I'm just going to say from the beginning, learn to say no when something like that comes your way. Whether it's a weakness for you or just something you don't have time to do, learn to say no to that. So here's the little tagline for this part of on my little outline here. Priorities not set are easily not kept. Priorities not set are easily not kept. So here's some qualifiers for this topic, because this is not a sensitive issue, but something that varies a lot person by person and depending upon the stage of your life and the different seasons of our lives. So to me, excuse me, a season is something that's temporary. It's a short amount of time, an end in sight kind of time in life, such as like, you have a summer semester of school that you expect to be super, super busy, or you've just had a baby, or you're planning a wedding or something, something like that. That's a short season. Whereas I would view a stage of your life as something that's permanent, semi-permanent, that lasts a little bit longer length of time, like you're just a college student in general. That's going to last you some time. Raising small children in your home. You can apply that to anything really. But you should create and keep your priorities during these varying stages and seasons. And sometimes during the seasons where it's a shorter amount of time, your priorities may take a little bit of a hit or a little bit of a shift. But there are 3 areas that I want to really delve into that if at all possible, you should not allow yourself to compromise when it comes to these 3 priorities. So uncompromising priority number 1 should be your relationship with God. You knew I was going to say that, didn't you? So Matthew 6:33-34 says, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." So keeping priorities requires us to do hard things. Keeping priorities requires us to do hard things. Seeking God's kingdom first must happen daily in our own lives. The word tells us in Luke 9:23, and he said, he being Jesus, he said to all, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." So our relationship with God is a lot like, in this way, is a lot like other relationships we may have, a marriage, a friendship, or whatever. But things tend toward decline if we don't diligently seek to better our relationship. Even our marriage relationships, if we don't diligently seek to better those, or our friendships, they won't just magically maintain themselves. And our relationship with God is the same way. That's something we have to diligently pursue and work on. So here are some practical, after we kind of talk about each one of these, we'll jump into some practical ways to apply the priority. So a practical way to keep Jesus first in our lives is wake up earlier. Yes, I sometimes love it and sometimes hate it, maybe depending on what the night before held. But make a rule of no screen time from 9 to 9, or 8 to 8, or whatever, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Give yourself a big chunk of time where you're guaranteed, if I don't have screen time, I know I'm going to get rest, physical rest, and I know that that's going to carve out enough time for me to make my relationship with God a priority. Choose Jesus over social media. Yes. And the church said amen. Make a quiet place that your family knows is Mom's do not disturb zone, and enforce that place be respected. So I even had to do this with Aaron earlier this week. I had a busy day, and I needed 30 minutes whenever he got home. And I just said, "Can you take him?" And I came to the same place that I do my prayer time and my devotion time. And that's kind of the zone in our house where if I'm here, you don't need to come and ask me a question right now. You can wait. So implement a do not disturb zone. And that might require your husband to help you some, and maybe don't do it 30 seconds after he walks in the door from work. But, a place where you can get away and your kids know too, this is a place to leave you be. Another way to keep God number 1 is to actively aim to learn something new from the Word daily. So you can always be doing some kind of Bible study, whether it's, something you're pursuing on your own, something you want to learn more about, or whether it's with our groups, or, just anything. Daily aim to learn something new. Another way you can implement this priority, post verses around your house to remind you of God's truth and draw your mind back to keeping him as your number one priority. So like I mentioned earlier, we get so busy, and we'll just get going on our to-do list and the things that we have to accomplish. And our to-do list is separate from our priorities in a lot of ways. They should reflect one another, but we'll go busting through that to-do list, and it will have been 8 hours since you talked to God in the morning, and he will have not crossed your mind if you're not careful by the end of the day. So, putting verses around your house, different things to remind you of God's truth, and kind of keep your mind focused on him as the number one priority. Okay, so I'm going to move on to uncompromising priority number 2. For me, this is my physical and mental health. So you may have thought I was going to say my family, and some people would say that, and I don't have any problem with that. But for me, my physical and mental health is the second on my list of priorities during this stage and season of my life. And this isn't everyone's favorite topic, but if I don't keep my eating habits and my physical activity in line with what God teaches in his word by taking care of my body, his temple, I will be less successful in every other area of my life. Hands down, guaranteed. Gluttony and sloth have always been major pitfalls in my life, and that fact informs this priority for me. They go hand in hand. This issue in my life informs this priority. So whether, this one ranks as number 2 for you or maybe number 3 for you, it should be in your top 3 priorities. So some practical ways to maintain your physical and mental health. Wake up earlier. I think I might have said that one a few minutes ago. I even said keeping our priorities right requires us to do hard things. And there's nothing harder than getting out of bed sometimes. I don't know why that is, but be sure that you get adequate sleep. This is a really important way to take care of yourself. Now, I understand different ones of us maybe in seasons of our lives where 8 hours of sleep or whatever your body requires it's not going to happen. If you're caring for a baby or if you have like a busy semester, whatever that case may be, but make sleep a priority in your life. Make it a priority. Choose a healthy lifestyle that works for you. Okay. I'm talking food, find what feels good for you and stick with that. Find forms of activity that you enjoy and that nurture your body. So, if you don't want to go run a mile, don't go run a mile. Walk. Do something else. There's lots of lower impact activities that are really enjoyable. Some of us really enjoy getting outside, that kind of activity. Find something that you really enjoy doing. Recognize the importance of your mental health and make time for yourself to relax. So this may be something as simple as like a warm cup of something and some quiet time during the day to unwind and just do nothing. It may mean a walk, because that serves your mental health too, not just your physical health. It may mean taking a bath, whatever restores you mentally, you need to make it a priority. So find a balance between, when you're nurturing your mind and your body, between periods of rest and periods of movement, and aim to take care of yourself. So you may notice that I didn't say treat yourself, because treating yourself, a lot of times when we treat ourselves, we choose to do something that actually undermines our priorities. So, if you say, I'm going to treat myself and I'm going to eat a whole cake, hopefully that's not happening, but that's going to undermine your priority of your own physical and mental health because you chose to treat yourself. So don't view what you do for yourself as a treat. View it as a way to nurture yourself. So I kind of have a personal approach to this. And at first glance, it may seem kind of selfish, but you have to keep in mind that if you maintain your physical and your mental health, you're better equipped to serve the people around you, your kids, your husband, your coworkers, and the rest of your family. You're better for them if you take care of yourself first. So here's the approach. Aim to do something for yourself every day. It doesn't have to be the same thing, because sometimes we have time to do a big thing for ourselves and sometimes we don't have any time. So aim to do something for yourself every day, and to see if this is something that's really going to nurture you, your mind and or your body, and be good for you, you can use this phrase. I'm going to give you an example. Today I blank for myself. So today I took a walk for myself. Just the tone of it kind of reflects that it was something that you did just for you and that it nurtured you, rather than undermining your goal to take care of yourself. Another example, today I had a cup of tea and I read a book for myself. So, kind of different than an example like this. It sounds like when we pick something that we know deep down probably isn't nurturing for us, even if we want to do it in the moment, in the long term isn't going to nurture us. For an example, something like this. Today I ate cake for myself. I mean, it even sounds silly. It's like we know that that's not nurturing. We just know in and of itself the way that it sounds. That's just going to be a detriment to our priorities. So, I'm not trying to preach at you about eating whatever you want to, of course, but do something that takes care of yourself physically and mentally every day, if at all possible, even if it only takes you 30 seconds to do. Try to do something for yourself. Moving on to the third one, uncompromising priority number 3. And so for you, this may be number 2, but for me, this one's number 3. Your nuclear family, meaning your household, and as a woman, I said extended family and or friendships, valuable friendships in their lives. So keeping your relationships with others in line with how the Bible teaches they should be is absolutely key. So for example, in the husband and wife relationship, Ephesians chapter 5 reminds us to respect our husbands. And I don't know, respecting my husband is more easily done by keeping him a priority in my life. So since this isn't a marriage devotion, I'm not going to harp on that too much. But if we keep our husbands high on our priority list, if we don't keep them high on our priority list, they'll find something or someone else that will, even if it's just a hobby, just an innocent hobby. Your husband married you for a reason and longs for your company. You should offer that to him without reservation. So your husband should be higher priority than your extended family and even your mom. I know a lot of us are close to our moms, so that's always a good reminder. Also, part of your nuclear family, your kids need you to make them a priority in your life. So don't be that busy mom that doesn't have time to really, really engage with her kids. When your kids are talking to you, look them in their eyes, listen to them, acknowledge and value their feelings, and aim to be a loving and gentle guide during these first 18 years of their lives. We only get them for about a quarter of their lives. That's only 8 short years. Don't waste those years being so focused on things that don't really matter that you miss your kids being kids. And then for the single ladies, if you don't have a nuclear family that lives there in your home with you, I just want to encourage you to nurture other relationships that you have and make it a priority to keep in practice of building relationships with other people, even though they may not be living in your house. I think it's important for all of us to try to build valuable relationships in our lives. So in my opinion, if you're unable to maintain these 3 areas of your life, you need to do a cull, some kind of purge on your life, on your to-do list, on your priorities, on your habits. You need to get yourself back on track. So you will be more successful, more accomplished, more motivated to keep your priorities in the right order if you accomplish these things in the first place. Otherwise, you may look up sometime from now and realize that you've just been spinning your wheels and likely unhappy and dissatisfied as a result of it. So everything beyond these 3 that I mentioned will vary greatly depending on your personal life and the stage and season that you're in. So right now for me, here's about where my personal priority list is. And I don't go into super detail, but my relationship with God, number 1, my mental health and physical health, my family, Aaron and Jack, my extended family, my church and my ministry, my hobbies, and my work. So your list, like I said, will probably look different, but number 1 should, no compromise, be in the same place God being in the same place. And numbers 2 and 3 should either be number 2 or 3 for you. So one last tip about, I'm going to move on to kind of another little topic, but one last tip about your priorities. Make people priorities, not things. Make people priorities, not things, because, the Bible teaches us, and we just know probably from life's experiences that things are not where we're going to find real value, and invest your time and your energy into people and not things. Another topic that I kind of want to move into along the same lines are mantras. So a mantra is a statement or a slogan that's repeated frequently. And actually a lot of other faiths use mantras during like meditations. And the Bible tells us that we should meditate on God's word. And that's a great place to start looking for some mantras. So mantras are a little more of a creative way than just these black and white priority lists. For those of us that are a little more whimsical, maybe a mantra may appeal to us a little more than a priority list. But mantras help us to be intentional, and they should be inspiring to you. And our mantras and our priorities should inform one another. They should line up with each other. So as an example, I'm going to share with you some of the mantras that I'm kind of using to guide my life right now. And those of you that are close to me will probably chuckle at some of them and say, well, that's not anything like your personality. Yes, that's the point, that these things aren't anything like my personality right now. And I want them to be. And it's a process getting there. So my mom and I actually joked about this one on Saturday. The first mantra that I have is be gentle and compassionate. So I use this one. I try to use it more than just for these things, but particularly I use it to guide my parenting choices and how I respond when I'm frustrated with Jack or Aaron when we're having a disagreement, to respond in a gentle and compassionate way. And since these are mantras that I keep a list of it on my phone so that I can go back and refresh my memory anywhere I am. But since these are mantras that are present in my mind when I feel myself getting frustrated, I can pause and remind myself, be gentle and compassionate. In the case of my son, he's only a year old. He's crying because of a reason I don't understand. I can't figure him out. He can't tell me. And so just to get angry and want to do something that doesn't serve either of us at all isn't helpful at all. Being gentle and compassionate is the right response. The second mantra I want to share, really different from the first one, is look what the Lord has done. So actually, I think this is just from a song. So when I'm feeling discouraged, I use this to remind myself to put the former things behind me and consider what the Lord is going to do in my life. So this one's actually based kind of off of Isaiah 43, verses 18 through 19. And I'll just read those because I really enjoy them. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. So look what the Lord has done. And when I need an extra oomph on remembering that one, I just play the song. So another mantra that I keep present in my mind as often as possible is you are not in control. And this one is as simple as it sounds. It's just a reminder that God's in control and I'm not. The next one, go to prayer. And I'm not talking about 5:30 prayer on Sunday. That's not what I'm talking about. This one is just a reminder to me to go to prayer when I'm frustrated or I'm any emotion that I encounter that I don't know what to do with. Go to prayer instead of Facebook or a girlfriend or a brownie, because that's the most likely one. So to me, it's just, stop what you're doing. The reason why you're looking for another outlet is because you need to take that to God. And for me, it really helps. And the last one I'm going to share is create community. So this one is a reminder to me to create a community of people to love and to serve with. And I use this one to remind myself to check on people I haven't heard from in a while, or touch base with someone that's sick, or make food for someone, or help at my grandma's 80th birthday party, or keep my friend's baby overnight. This kind of stuff that I think a lot of our electronic society has kind of lost because we don't have to live as in close community with each other as we used to. I think we kind of lose out on that. And so that's just a reminder to me to be intentional about making those connections with people, because we are all so self-centered and very easily self-absorbed if we're not careful. And so that just reminds me that I need to put other people, I don't want to say very first, but I need to give other people value in my lives, serve other people, and be helpful to them. So I have about 10 total mantras that I use right now, and I plan to stick with those until they no longer resonate with me. And in an attempt to keep my vision from getting too overcrowded with too many little guides, I've limited that number to 10 for myself. So if you wanted to implement this, maybe 5 things would be right for you, or 7, or maybe 12 would be better. I think that just really depends on your personality. So kind of a way to build some of these mantras with a biblical basis, although I think that most all of the ones that I have do have a biblical basis. I want to kind of do this with Titus chapter 2, verses 4 and 5. And I'm going to actually read it with verse 3 to give it a little bit of context from the New American Standard Version. Older women likewise are to be reverent in their behavior, not malicious gossips or enslaved to much wine, teaching what is good, starting here, so that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be sensible, pure, workers at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of God will not be dishonored. So having this verse actually work as a mantra is a reminder to me of a lot of different qualities that I can seek and aim to reach. To love my husband, love my children, be sensible, be pure, be a homemaker, be kind, and be subject to my husband. So you can do that with verses. I mean, this is really just what the Word of God is telling us to do whenever they say meditate on the Word. It's just keep these things present in your mind. It doesn't have to be something, y'all know I'm a little bit crunchy and a little bit hippie sometimes. So it doesn't have to be something out there that, you found somewhere else or that you heard somewhere else. You can use just the Word of God for these kind of guides, just keeping these short snippets of verses present in your mind. So just real quickly, I want to talk about goals, because I think goals and priorities go hand in hand. And we've talked about priorities, we've talked about these mantras, and some of us want to keep our priorities in line for the specific reason of reaching and accomplishing some of our tangible goals. So sometimes we set goals that are so huge that there's no way we can accomplish them. And then we fail, and we're so bummed out and let down that we didn't accomplish our huge goal that we just quit altogether. So if you're a goal setter, because some of us just aren't really into setting goals, set small, reasonable, attainable goals that slowly work you toward your end dream. So you see, goals get you to your dream instead of just being like, I want to be an astronaut. Okay. And then that's it. You don't even know what steps to take to get there. 3 weeks later, you're upset because you're not an astronaut. Well, maybe set some smaller goals to get to the dream. It'll take some small goals to get there. And if you think you're one of the people that don't like setting goals, it may be because you've set goals like that a little too much. So even if you think, oh, goals aren't for me, that's not my kind of thing, try setting some small ones, and you'll see it's kind of like a snowball effect. The more you accomplish with your small goals, the more inclined you'll be to set more small goals. And by the end of, whatever set period of time, you've really reached something that you would have thought some time ago you never would be able to. So oftentimes I find that if my priorities are in the right order and I'm working on implementing these mantras and daily reminders, my goals actually come to fruition more naturally. So your priorities being in the right place are going to serve you in getting your goals accomplished. So to kind of wrap things up, we have this preconceived idea as Christian women of what our priorities should be. And if we're not careful, we can get kind of ho-hum about that basic knowledge because we've just known it so much and so long and so well, to the point that we don't really maintain them as well as we ought to, and they're not something that Was it just me? I don't know if I just went away or everyone did, but
You were froze for a moment, but you're back on now.
okay. I don't know what happened. Did y'all hear Psalm 90, verse 12?
No.
Okay. Let's see. Get it back all situated here. Psalm 90, verse 12. So teach us to number our days that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. So just as a reminder, life is so short and we are so finite. And I think a devotion like this is just to encourage you not to look up a year from now and regret any of the time you spent, how you set your priorities, the goals that you made, and to really live with intention. And some of you may be thinking, wow, Ashley, you've set a really high and unattainable ideal that's difficult to establish, much less to maintain. And I just want to encourage you that keeping your priorities and implementing mantras that guide your life and your goals is a practice. Everything in life takes practice. Some days we'll look back and see that we didn't live by the mantras that we have lined out for our lives, and our priorities just weren't what they should have been. And thankfully, this is kind of a simple area in our lives where we can make some small tweaks that make big differences. So if you think your priorities are not in the right order, or even if you do, I would encourage all of y'all to do this, but take some time and write out how you think they are now, and then write the list of what you want them to look like. And then take small steps to make those switches, those changes in your life. Or sometimes, depending on the circumstance, you can make a big switch by taking something completely out of your life that has been skewing your priorities. And if that's the case, you know exactly what that is. And if you needed permission from someone, you can go ahead and get rid of that. So whatever state you find your priorities in tonight, just remember that this is a practice. You are ever changing. And if you're intentional about it, you're ever growing. I want to read one last little quote here from this book right here. It's called Let Me Be a Woman. It's by Elizabeth Elliot. It's excellent, and I highly recommend it. And this quote says, "The way we live our life
Everybody hang in there just for a second. Ashley, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're frozen.
I don't know. My computer keeps. I just called from my phone. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So I have some questions that we can.
Can you go back to your quote? We didn't get that from the book. That's where we lost you. Be a woman. Your quote from that book.
Yes. The quote is, "The way we live life ought to manifest the truth of what we believe. A messy life speaks of a messy faith." So our faith should be reflected in the way that we live our life, and our priorities are a big part of that. So I have some questions that we can talk about, but we can see if anyone has anything to ask before, if you'd like. Okay. What are some life mantras or maybe some life verses that keep you going on the right path with your priorities? These could probably help the rest of us if you will be willing to share.
I use the scripture that his mercies are new every morning. So when I'm hard on myself that I didn't, do what I was supposed to or reach a goal, I use that to be easy on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Repeat the question, Ashley.
What are some life mantras or life verses that keep you going on the right path with your priorities?
Yeah. I think his mercies are new every day is probably, I would agree with Sally for that one. Ashley, how I jotted this question down as you were doing your devotion. How do you find your mantras? Do you just kind of find things as you're during your prayer and your devotion that touch your heart, and do those become your mantras, or?
Yeah, some of them, a lot of are taken from different things that I read. Um, I'm jumping over to them real quick to kind of, and then some of them are just things that I'll hear someone else say. Like I mentioned on a previous dial and devotion, this is not an emergency. I heard someone else say that, and I thought, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that really speaks to me. So, different, like ungratefulness gives birth to greed, thankfulness gives birth to contentment. If I'm in prayer and something impacts me from a verse or just something I feel like God impressed on me, or I hear something someone else says, there's no specificity to it on where I find that kind of stuff, except that it has to obviously line up with the word of God before I'm going to repeatedly implant it into my mind. But otherwise, it's really just anywhere where that inspiration kind of comes from.
Melinda, did you have your hand up a moment ago?
Who?
Melinda?
I did, but it was to ask about the author of the book.
Okay, Ashley, your book, Let Me Be a Woman. Who is the author for that?
It's by Elizabeth Elliot. It's from, she wrote it in the late 70s. She was actually a missionary. She and her husband was killed by the tribe they were missionaries to. And she served them for 2 years after they killed him.
Wow.
And this, what I really am enjoying about it is that it's a really traditional view of femininity and womanhood, and it also, she lived the married woman's life, she lived a single woman's life, and she lived a mother's life. So she has a really interesting perspective on the topic of womanhood. Basically, it's a short read, but it's dense, and I'm really enjoying it. I highly recommend it.
Anne, did you have a question?
Well, she had asked us if we had something to share, like mantras or something. I actually call mine mission statements, because like a lot of companies have a mission statement. But one that I have tried very hard to follow is make a difference in someone's life every day. Even if it's just a smile to someone who's not smiling, a total stranger. Sometimes you can just smile at somebody and make their day. But to make a difference in someone's day every day.
Yeah.
Good. I was jotting that down. Anyone else have any questions? I know Ashley has a couple of others. I've had her prepare a few others. Any other questions for Ashley regarding some of the things that she mentioned tonight? Annalisa?
Ashley, you mentioned about on the section that you were talking about relationship with God. You talked about putting scriptures around you at home, and I'm thinking back to the time that you were working outside of the home. I found myself in a new job where I find that all my thinking is in work, and I take a quick break in the morning and a quick in the afternoon, and I'm really working the whole time. What advice could you give for working ladies, working outside of the home ladies, to find ways to incorporate, to keep God on the mind when
Sure.
yeah, just that.
Yeah. Firstly, I say, if at all possible, especially if you're leaving your home and you're going into your workplace, to pray in the morning before is the best way to get yourself on the right track in the morning. And specifically pray, God, be on my mind today. Come to my mind. Even though I know I'll be busy, I invite you and welcome you to interrupt my time because I need you, and go into the reason why. I do that especially on the days that I have to work because, I don't work very many hours and I have to do a lot in the amount of time on some days. I actually just posted, and I don't know that in a secular workplace, I'm sure this is probably okay. It's your prerogative. I was posted a little verse on the bottom of my computer screen just the last time I was in my office. Work heartily as unto the Lord. Let everything you do be as unto the Lord. That verse I posted right there at the bottom of my computer screen. So you can put something out to remind you. It doesn't have to be a verse. It can be, something that just brings to your mind. Stop and take 10 seconds to, whether it's thank God for this moment, whether it's stop to take a break and just rest in the Lord for a few minutes. And you can even do stuff like, the background on your computer. Does it have to be a verse? No. Could it be some beautiful piece of nature that reminds you of God's beauty? I mean, anything really that you can do that resonates with you that's going to bring him to your mind will work. I a lot of times will put a specific screensaver on my phone, or anything that I know, anything you're going to use regularly during the day. If you can put something on it, in it, around that's going to remind you of God and to stop and engage with him for a moment, that will work for you. Really just depends on your own situation, your workspace.
Anyone else have any suggestions? All of those were good ideas and good suggestions. Anyone else? I can't tell you how many times a restroom stall has been a little prayer room for me when I worked in corporate America. Sometimes it was the only place that I could get away and just spend a few moments with the Lord,
Amber Montgomery said, I have several little crosses and plaques at my desk and listen to worship music if allowed. I also keep my Bible on my desk as a reminder.
Tiana?
One thing that I do, because I do get really busy at work at times, but my calendar on my email address at work, I set an appointment. So
Good.
that, because I'm always looking at my email, whether I have it in a small screen or even when you have your email minimized, it still shows like a little thing in a corner when you get a new email appointment. So I'll set an appointment, and that kind of helps me stay on track to stop for a moment. So that's really helpful for me since I'm always staring at the computer screen.
That's a great suggestion. And even in that little appointment, you can put some of those mantras that could pop up during that time that you could think of, or, something like that. Sister Ann, did you have something to share?
I do. There have been times through the years that I know not everybody can do this, but working in a dental office, I have made a point to be there before everyone else and just pray in the office just to kind of set the mood for the office for that day. And it's amazing what that will do. And this last job I had, I wasn't able to be the first one because one of the girls got there very early every day. But she and I together started praying, and she would come to me. And so that is one thing. And then you said something about the restroom. In the dental office, we used to have years ago a dark room. And I can't tell you how many times I made that dark room my prayer room. And just, if I was having a rough day or if I felt like I needed to minister to a particular patient, when I went to develop their x-rays, I would ask the Lord for guidance with that patient and stuff. But maybe go a little early in the morning. And even if you're not the only one there, just sit at your desk and just yourself get in a mind and a spirit of prayer in that office. And it's amazing what a difference it'll make.
That's true. That's true. Well, it's 8:45, and I want us to have a little bit of time for prayer. Hallie, did you have a question or a statement? You'd like to share something with us?
Yeah. Mine is always be willing to help someone, even if it's just to talk to somebody or even just to have someone to listen to you talk.
Yes.
It goes a long way.
Yes, it does. It's so true. Ashley, did you have anything else that you would like to close with, or any question that you feel like you'd still like to toss in there that's be helpful?
The only other thing I wanted to add is that making your priorities, making a list of your priorities and keeping them multiplies your time. I think a lot of times think, oh, but I don't have time to stop and do such and such because I'm so busy with all these other things. I don't know why it works this way, but when you stop and make, especially those first three things, your relationship with God, your mental and physical health, and your family, when you make those three things the top priority in your life, your time will grow for you. It just works like that. So, if you have something in your life that's keeping you from putting those three things where they should be, just, honestly evaluate that and make some changes, because it's to your benefit and it's definitely to the benefit of the people around you.
Thank you. That is so good. I think one of the things that you said tonight, I took a lot of notes, but one of the things that you said tonight that really touched my heart or spoke to me was whatever it is, maybe no screen time from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Or, you know what I mean? No, we're so controlled by our electronics or by our screens or, by continual demands from our electronic devices or the TV or Netflix or, whatever. And you may call that relaxing. And yes, it can be. But when we haven't had our time with God, then we're robbing ourselves of where our priorities should be as Christian women. And God's just standing back going, I really wish you'd put me first, because I could give you so much more peace. And just as Ashley said, I can give you so much more time than you could ever imagine. So I hope this has spoken to your heart tonight. It has spoken to mine. Much of it is nothing new to most of us. It's things that we need to be reminded of. So thank you very much, Ashley, for sharing your heart tonight. Good job. I appreciate it. Anybody else have anything? Kira seems to be doing better. You guys keep her in your prayers. And thank you for joining us for Dial In Devotion. I'm going to conclude our recording.